Hey, yo, what up? So, you know, some dork called me a weeb today, and I actually love when that happens. Um, because to me, it's like, oh, you think I'm really into Japanese culture? Good. I'm glad I'm so into it that someone else can take notice of it. It's just a compliment to me. And in that vein, we're going to talk about an anime today that actually hurt my feelings. It's called Air. Let me give you a little rundown history on it because I think that the history of it is quite fascinating. And I am a true otaku weeb nerd. I know my anime history. Air did not begin its life as an anime, and this is typical for most anime. It usually begins as a manga of some sorts, maybe even a doujinshi. Air began its life as a graphical hentai novel on a computer full of sex and nudity. But the story was so good, it sold like crazy. Maybe you've heard of another game in this vein where it's like, yo, this story is really good, but man, why you gotta have like these 30-minute long sex scenes in it? I mean, this actually sounds like the whole I'm just reading the Playboy for the articles thing, but the story in Air was, or people were saying back then, it's so good that it's like the sex actually kind of just gets in the way. Like, I don't even care. I want to know what happens, dude. There was so much fan outcry in that regard that Sega approached the developers and was like, hey, you want to put Air on the Sega Dreamcast? Take out all the nudity and the sex? We will allow you to sell it on the Dreamcast. We'll publish it for you. It then, on the Dreamcast, was met with so much widespread critical acclaim that they decided to make an anime out of it. And I have never seen nor read nor beheld anything, quite frankly, that has upset me, made me uncomfortable, and hurt my feelings quite as bad as Air has. I was even telling some people recently that, like, I was cooking some food and I just started thinking about Air, and I just started bawling, dude. Like genuinely for real, because I finally actually finished digesting that story, and I want to talk about it right now. The whole story opens up with some dude. He's sitting at a train station, and he's got like a little teeny tiny paper doll. Doesn't weigh that much, and he just does some little finger twiddling magic, and oh, look, I can make the doll do a silly little dance. And some kids come up to him and they're like, oh wow, that's cool, mister, can you do any other magic tricks? And he's just like, no, just this. And they're like, oh, that's lame, you suck. And then they wander off. But then he just kind of sits there and just keeps, thinking to himself about his family's history and where he comes from and his lineage. And then he meets this one girl, like comes up to him and is like, hey, didn't mean to buy 2 of these peach drinks from the machine, but I did. Do you want one? So he just starts hanging out with her and just like, okay. And then he's like, ugh, wow, this peach drink is so thick. What the hell's wrong with you? How can you even drink this? And that's like the first time anyone has ever like talked back to her and like criticized her type of deal, and she takes it kind of seriously, and they just start talking to each other. And I'm gonna truncate this a bit for you, obviously. The anime is a bit truncated because it's based on a game where you can choose to date multiple girls, but you want the true ending, you have to do the correct thing type of deal. Is like this girl, she lives with kind of an adoptive aunt who's taking care of her type situation. And you start finding out that there's something unusual about this girl. She isn't outwardly physically ill, but she has these manic depressive spells where she just like can't get out of bed and can't do anything. And the closer you and her, well, I'm talking about you, you're playing the game, even though it's an anime. I'm talking about whatever, maybe I've had a little bit to drink. As you get closer to her, her condition continues to worsen. She becomes less and less physically capable, and she starts having these episodic spells where oh god, if you've seen the show, when they're playing cards, god, that scene is, that is the most difficult to watch thing I have ever seen. The card scene. That I'm not going to explain it. I'm not going to get into it. Watch it. Like, that is so, it's so uncomfortably real. The voice actor did an unbelievable job. The animators and the director did a fantastic job of perfectly representing that. And that's all I want to say about that. And then, it gets to a point where, you're told, like, yo, look, you need to stop coming around because she is getting physically and mentally worse the more you're around her. And this is why she can't make friends. Like, she can't get close to people. This is what happens. And then in the original base story, when this was still just a game, at the end of what you're supposed to do is keep getting as close to her as possible, and unfortunately in the end she dies with a smile on her face because she was able to make a friend. And then in the original game, after you've done everything, they just turned it into the last episode of the anime, you get the full story. You get the extra bonus chapter that recontextualizes things for you so you understand. It goes back like 1600 years in Japanese history that there was a goddess who took care of a town, like an actual goddess, like watched over their harvest and kept them safe from demons type of thing. And eventually, as the people like lost faith in her, more bad things started happening to them, and so they blamed her, even though she can't do anything unless the people have faith in her. That's like the whole point of like worshiping a deity, is they are empowered by the worship of a mortal. So they start blaming her for all their problems, and eventually like crucify her and kill her. And her two like human shrine keepers that always looked over her and watched after her, they are completely mortified watching the god they used to care for killed in front of them. And they kind of did, well, it was a hentai game, so they make a baby, the male and female who used to watch over the goddess. And that was the start of the main character's bloodline, was the child that was born from the grief of the two shrine caretakers. That began a magical bloodline because they were so connected to the goddess herself. They became like infused with parts of her divine powers. And that's why when the story starts, all this dude can do is make a little tiny doll just do a silly little dance, because that's like the end of his magic. The magical powers have been bred with so much common blood over so many years that that's like all he can do anymore. But he is a descendant of those people that were trying to help their shrine maiden and failed her. And this girl in the story, she is the reincarnation of that ancient Japanese goddess. And that's why she's so afraid to get close to people, because in her previous life as a goddess, getting close to the people is what resulted in her getting crucified and killed, because she showed compassion and became friends with people. So that's why she's so terrified of doing that again and can't be around people, and why she becomes physically debilitated closer this guy comes to her, because it's like triggering things inside of her that are making her remember what happened to her before. But the story, in my opinion, it does conclude on, I wouldn't call it a good or even really a happy note, but it ends on the kind of somber note that will make you think about it for a long time. And in my opinion, that completely makes it worth your time. Like, I don't know. I like things that make me cry. I like things that upset me and make me hurt. Like The Land Before Time, An American Tail. I don't know why. I'm drawn to those types of things. And as far as those types of things go, yeah. Air punched me in the face about 15 years ago, and I'm just now finally recovering from it. I don't recommend it casually. I recommend you understand what you're getting into. So, there you go. It's a good show. For a lot of reasons, I think. Anyway, thanks for listening. Appreciate your time. God bless.